I'm Lauren Bennett, 31 years old, and the day my younger sister called my boss pretending to be me, she didn't just cost me a job. She took everything I'd spent years building. I had spent the night before preparing for a presentation that could have changed my career. When I showed up the next morning, my key card wouldn't work. 2 hours later, I was standing outside the building holding a cardboard box and a reputation in shreds. That night, I sat alone in my apartment wondering how someone who claimed to love me could do something like that. I didn't know it yet, but that betrayal would be the beginning of everything that came next. Before I go any further, drop your city in the comments, and if you've ever had to rebuild after someone close let you down, hit that like and subscribe button so more people can find stories like this. I grew up just outside Boston, in a neighborhood where families waved to each other over picket fences and kids biked home when the streetlights came on. From the outside, we looked solid. My parents, Diane and Frank, kept the house neat, the lawn trimmed. We had spaghetti on Wednesdays, pancakes on Sundays, and dinner together every night like it was gospel. But inside that house, things felt different if you were me. I was the oldest of three. There was me then, my sister Amber, 2 years younger, and our older brother Jake. Ever since I was a kid, I got handed the role of the steady one. At 10 years old, I was helping pay the bills, making sure Amber got to school, and quietly stepping between my parents' arguments like it was my job to keep the peace. Amber, on the other hand, was allowed to just be a kid. That's how my mom put it. She said Amber had a gentle spirit and needed protecting. What she meant was Amber didn't have to lift a finger. Even Jake learned early that going along with whatever Amber wanted made life easier. Just let it go. He used to tell me even when she broke my things, lied to my friends, or made a scene over nothing, it's not worth the fight. It didn't matter how many times I bit my tongue or picked up the slack. Nothing I did ever seemed to earn the same praise Amber got for just showing up. So I poured everything I had into school. I graduated with a 4.0, earned a partial scholarship to Boston University, and juggled 2 part-time jobs to pay the rest. Meanwhile, my parents covered every cent of Amber's 3 failed college attempts and still treated her like she was trying her best. When I finally earned my marketing degree, I planned a quiet dinner to celebrate. Amber showed up late, complained that the vegan options weren't authentic, even though she'd only gone vegan the week before, and cried when our dad toasted me. The night ended with everyone comforting her. Again. But I kept pushing forward. I got my first job at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. The pay was nothing to brag about, but it had benefits and room to grow. I bought secondhand office clothes, rented a 1-bedroom walk-up, and stayed late most nights to prove myself. I wasn't chasing praise anymore. I just wanted a life I could be proud of. Amber didn't like that. The more I built for myself, the more passive-aggressive she got. She accidentally ruined the only nice dress I owned the night before a client meeting. Called me nonstop during my first industry speaking event until I had to shut my phone off and missed an important follow-up from my manager. The worst was when I had a final round interview at a larger agency. I laid out the navy suit I'd saved months to buy and found it stained with foundation makeup the next morning. Amber swore it was an accident. Still, I kept going. I still showed up for Sunday dinners, still listened to Amber's latest influencer phase, still swallowed it all. Then one week, I got the call I'd been waiting for. A promotion was on this table, Junior Director of Marketing. I'd worked 3 years for that moment. I stayed up nights fine-tuning the presentation I'd been asked to give. The night before, I called home to skip Sunday dinner so I could prepare. My mom sighed. Amber apparently had something big to announce. I promised I'd make it up to her. That was the last normal conversation I'd have with any of them. I woke up early the next morning, pressed my suit, got to the building an hour ahead of time. When I tried to badge in, the scanner flashed red. Access denied. I didn't know it then, but Amber had already made the call, and by the time I figured it out, it was already too late. When the security panel flashed red the second time, I still thought it was a glitch. I'd gotten there early like I always did before big meetings. My charcoal gray suit was pressed. My notes were in hand. I even had a backup USB in my purse just in case the projector didn't work. I was ready, or at least I had been until the building refused to let me in. I stepped back, looked up at the glass doors, then tried again, still red. I called up to reception. Donna answered. Her voice didn't sound like it usually did. "Lauren, I've been asked not to let you in," she said, almost whispering. "You'll need to call Victoria." That's when my stomach dropped. Victoria Pearson wasn't just my boss. She was the person who had championed me, mentored me, pushed for me to be considered for the promotion. We'd spent weeks preparing this presentation. It was supposed to be the final step. My shot. I called her right away. Her voice was cold, clipped. "I'm incredibly disappointed in you, Lauren," she said. I froze. "Victoria." What's going on?" "You called me last night, after 11, clearly intoxicated. You said you were quitting. You called the company a joke. You made hateful remarks about our clients, about your colleagues. You left me no choice." I couldn't speak. "That wasn't me," I said finally. "I didn't call you. I recorded the call. Company policy. Don't bother denying it." The line went silent for a beat. Then she added, "Your things will be couriered to your home. Do not attempt to return to the building again." I stood there for a long time, phone in hand, not knowing what to do. People from my department were walking in, giving me short glances, some avoiding my eyes completely. Brian from accounting passed by, then paused. He looked uncomfortable. "You should go home, Lauren." "That wasn't me on the call," I said. "Someone impersonated me." He looked at me for a second, then handed me his phone. "Someone recorded it," he said. I listened. I knew my own voice. I also knew my sister's. Amber used to mimic me when we were kids, call my friends prank our neighbors. It was always her little party trick. The voice in the recording was close enough to fool someone who didn't know better. I stared at the screen. My hands felt numb. "It was Amber," I said. "She did this." Security came not long after. Quiet, polite, professional. They walked me off the property like I was a stranger. I went straight to my parents' house. I knew Amber would be there. She was at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "You called my boss," I said, pretending to be me. She looked up slowly. "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me. You imitated my voice. You got me fired." Mom came in from the living room. "Lauren, lower your voice." "Why would she do that?" she asked like it was the most absurd thing in the world. "Because she's jealous," I said. "Because she can't stand seeing me get ahead." Amber's expression cracked for half a second. Then she started crying. "I was joking," she said, covering her face. "I was going to call back and explain. I didn't know they'd actually fire you." My dad walked in next, adjusting his belt like he'd just come from outside. "What's going on?" I played the voicemail for him. The recording. I showed him the messages. All of it. He didn't even sit down. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he said. "She made a mistake." It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. And I lost everything. Amber sniffed. "You take your job so seriously. I thought you'd laugh." I looked at them all. My mom put a hand on Amber's shoulder. My dad just shook his head. "If they let you go that fast," he said, "maybe it wasn't the right place for you." That was it. My brother Jake came by not long after. My mom must have called him. I explained everything again. He listened, nodded, then said, "It's not great, but you're kind of making it worse." "They have a recording," I said. "No one's going to hire me now." Jake shrugged. "Maybe it's a chance to try something new." I looked at each of them. Amber wiping fake tears. My mom defending her. My dad telling me to be grateful for the roof over my head. Jake too tired to care. And it hit me this wasn't new. This was just the first time the consequences had landed so hard. "I need someone to acknowledge what she did," I said. "Really acknowledge it." But no one did. "You're overreacting. She didn't mean it. You'll find something else." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The next few weeks were the darkest I'd ever lived through. I filed for unemployment, but because I'd been fired for cause, there was a delay. My savings were small enough for maybe 6 weeks if I stretched it. I applied everywhere. Small agencies, big firms, even freelance gigs. But the Boston marketing world isn't that big. The Meridian story had already gotten around. Some interviews started well until they didn't. We've heard about an incident one hiring manager said carefully. "Is there anything you'd like to clarify?" What could I say? My sister impersonated me. No one believed it. By the 6th week, I was skipping meals to stretch groceries. I kept the heat low. I stopped answering my family's calls. Amber sent a few texts. Still not talking to me, I said I was sorry. My parents didn't ask how I was doing. No offer to help, no apology. Then one evening, as I sat at my kitchen table trying to figure out how many more days I had before I'd miss rent again, I got a text from my mom. "Amber's moving to New York. A new job, big opportunity, celebration dinner on Sunday. Your presence is expected." Expected. No mention of what I was living through. I didn't reply. I didn't go. The next day, I took my grandmother's old silver bracelet, a piece I'd held onto since college, and pawned it to cover rent. That same afternoon, I forced myself to attend a tech mixer. I didn't have business cards, so I took old ones and scribbled out the company name. The crowd was young, trendy, confident. I felt invisible. Then a woman in her 50s, silver-streaked hair and a kind face, handed me a glass of wine. "You look like you could use this more than me." Her name was Elaine, COO of a small tech startup. We talked. I told her the truth, at least most of it. She handed me her card. "We need someone who can talk to real people. Come by tomorrow at 10. I can't promise anything fancy, but we need people who know how to work." The next morning I showed up, and just like that, something shifted. Elaine's office was in a red brick building just off the commuter line, tucked between a printing company and a bike repair shop. I got there 10 minutes early holding my thrift store tote bag with a printed resume, a pen that barely wrote, and the only notebook I hadn't filled with job search notes. Inside the walls were bare brick and painted pipes. A cluster of desks filled the open space. A few people wore hoodies. Someone had brought their dog. It felt more like a college study group than a workplace. Elaine was already there when I arrived. She waved me in like we'd known each other for years. "Come on back," she said. "Let's not make this formal." The position wasn't glamorous. Marketing coordinator, mostly blog posts, flyers, and updating the website. The pay was tight but steady. I didn't hesitate. "I'll take it," I said. "I'll start whenever you need me." "We need you yesterday." She smiled. That first week, I felt like I was learning a new language. The company Nexus Technologies was building an app to help people split expenses. Rent, groceries, travel. Simple in theory, but messy in real life. The product team was all 20-somethings who thought every problem could be solved with a meme. I wasn't there to impress them. I was there to survive. My new desk was a corner table between the kitchen and a row of plants. I brought my own mug, a yellow one with a chip in the rim, and filled it with the cheapest coffee from the break room. I wrote blog posts about budgeting for roommates and how to talk about shared bills without ruining friendships. The work wasn't hard, but it kept me moving. At night, I walked Bella, the nervous terrier mix I'd adopted from a rescue shelter just after starting the job. She followed me from room to room, always watching, always waiting for something bad to happen. We were the same that way. By the 3rd week, I was invited to a brainstorming session with the product team. They wanted to improve user engagement with non-tech-savvy customers. Most of the ideas sounded like startup buzzwords, gamify this, data track that. I stayed quiet for a while. Then I raised my hand. "What if we made short animated videos," I said. "Real-life scenarios, like 2 friends arguing over who paid for dinner last time. Simple characters, everyday voices. no tech jargon. The room went quiet. Noah, the product manager, leaned back in his chair. "Huh," he said. "That's actually not bad." Elaine gave me a small nod. That was the first time I felt something shift. The next few weeks blurred together. I started staying later, helping edit scripts, testing taglines, and sitting in on meetings I hadn't been invited to. Slowly, I was becoming part of something again. Outside of work, I kept my world small. I deleted all my social media accounts. I didn't return calls from my parents. I ignored Amber's texts. I focused on keeping my heat on and groceries in the fridge. My apartment was still small, but it was quiet. I brought home a lamp from the office giveaway pile and added it to my kitchen table. I started journaling again. Just a few sentences a night, enough to track where I was. Madison, the office manager at Nexus, became the first person I really connected with. She invited me to trivia nights at a local bar. I usually said no, but one Friday I surprised her and myself by showing up. "Family stuff, huh?" she asked when I vaguely mentioned my past few months. I nodded. "My brother stole my identity in college," she said, matter of fact. "Ran up $20,000 in credit card debt. Haven't talked to him since." I looked at her. "Did you ever forgive him?" "Nope," she said, taking a sip of her beer. "I pressed charges. Best decision I ever made." She didn't say it to be dramatic, just honest. It was the first time someone hadn't told me to let it go. 6 months into the job, I'd paid off what I owed on my credit card. I'd restocked my pantry. I'd even bought Bella a proper dog bed, though she still preferred the floor by the door. At work, the explainer videos we'd launched were performing better than anyone expected. Retention was up. Customers actually commented on how relatable the content was. Then one Tuesday morning, Elaine came in holding a bottle of champagne. "Everyone to the conference room," she said loud enough for the whole office. We'd secured $15 million in venture funding. The company was staying afloat before barely. Now, we were expanding, new hires, new offices, better equipment. That Friday, Daniel, the CEO, called me into his office. "Your video campaign sealed the deal," he said, handing me a plastic cup of warm champagne. Investors said it made the product feel human. A week later, I was offered a promotion, Director of Marketing. With it came a salary that made me check the offer letter twice, and stock options. At the time, I didn't know what they'd be worth. It just sounded like monopoly money. I moved out of my old apartment and into a townhouse in Beacon Hill. Brick exterior, old windows, creaky floors, exactly the kind of place I used to walk past on my way home and dream about. I bought my grandmother's bracelet back from the pawn shop and wore it to work that first Monday. I bought Bella a second bed for the upstairs landing. She still followed me everywhere. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Kinsey. She had quiet eyes and a bowl of peppermints in her waiting room. I told her everything slowly over time. When she asked how it felt to succeed without my family there to see it, I told her the truth. "It feels quiet." "You mean peaceful?" she asked. "No," I said, "just quiet." I joined a local photography club. I'd loved photography in college back when I had time for it. Now I spent weekends walking along the river with my old Canon, taking pictures of bridges, doorways, and dogs. I volunteered twice a month at an animal shelter walking nervous strays like Bella. I didn't reach out to my family. I didn't block them either. But I changed my number, got a new email, moved without telling them. They weren't part of this chapter, and I needed it that way. 16 months after I was fired from Meridian, I was featured in Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40, a short write-up, my photo in a navy blue blazer, a mention of the acquisition and the marketing campaign that helped launch it. 3 days later, my phone started ringing. My mother, my father, Jake, Amber. They'd all seen the article. The first text came from my mother. "So proud of you, sweetheart. What a beautiful photo. We always knew you'd do something amazing." Then one from Jake. "Congrats, sis. Really impressive. Let's catch up soon." Amber's message arrived last. "OMG, you're famous now. We have to do lunch. Miss you. Love you." I let the phone sit face down on my desk for most of the day. I knew I'd have to respond eventually, but I wasn't ready to invite any of that energy back in, not yet. That week I brought it up during therapy. Dr. Kinsey listened without interrupting. "When people resurface after your success, it's rarely about you," she said. "It's often about how your success reflects something they want or feel entitled to." By Friday, I'd made up my mind. I texted my family and agreed to meet for dinner. One night. Neutral ground. A place I chose. No surprises. The restaurant I picked was a quiet bistro near the financial district, modern, clean, and far enough from their side of town that no one would accidentally run into us. I arrived 20 minutes early and asked for a corner table where I could see the door. The host seated me, and I ordered a glass of water. My parents walked in first. My mother wore a navy cardigan I hadn't seen before. Her eyes scanned the room before they landed on me. She smiled, wide arms already outstretched. "Lauren," she said as she leaned in for a hug. I stood but didn't embrace her back, just offered a polite smile and motioned toward their seats. "You look different," she said, settling in. "Very polished." "Professional success agrees with you," my dad added. He gave me a firmer handshake than usual. They looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just smaller. Jake arrived next with a woman I didn't recognize. Kayla. He introduced her with too much energy, like he was trying to impress her more than me. "Lauren's the tech exec I told you about," he said. "She made the Forbes list or something." Boston Business Journal, I corrected. Just a short profile. Amber was last, 20 minutes late. She breezed in like she was walking a red carpet. Her hair was different, sleek and darker, and her clothes looked carefully chosen. Designer, but subtle. "There she is," she said loud enough for a few heads to turn. "My big sister, the CEO. Look at us, we're practically twins now. I've even got a job in corporate." "You're working full-time?" I asked. "Well, I'm consulting for an influencer marketing agency," she said, sliding into her chair. "It's basically the same thing, just more creative. We ordered drinks, sparkling water for me, wine for the rest." My dad chose the most expensive bottle without even looking at the price. For the first half hour, the conversation stayed light. My mother described the new paint color in the living room. Jake mentioned something about a raise at work. Amber shared a few vague updates about her growing online presence. No one asked about my life. No one mentioned what had happened between us. Then the food came and the tone shifted. My dad set his fork down and cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been thinking about retirement." I nodded once. "That's good. You've earned it." He leaned forward slightly. "Well, the truth is, the market's been rough. We've had to dip into savings. The roof needs replacing, and there were some unexpected medical bills last year." My mother nodded, dabbing at the corner of her mouth. "Just tests," she said quickly. "Nothing serious, but you know how insurance is." I waited. "We were wondering." My dad continued, "If you might be in a position to help us, just until the market settles." I didn't say anything. Jake took that as a cue. Actually, he said, pulling a small folder from under the table, "I've been working on a business idea. An app for dog owners. Think Tinder, but for puppy playdates." "Sounds like the dog park," I said, keeping my tone flat. No, this would match based on breed temperament schedule. I just need some seed funding. Half of what Mom and Dad need would cover development. Kayla smiled and touched his arm like she'd heard the pitch before. Amber leaned in next. "I know we've had our ups and downs," she said, placing her hand gently on mine. "But that prank call, total misunderstanding. Water under the bridge." "Right?" I didn't answer. "I'm this close to becoming a full-time content creator. she continued, holding her fingers an inch apart. "I just need a proper setup. Maybe 50 grand I could totally endorse your company. Cross-promotion, win-win." I looked around the table. 4 expectant faces, each waiting for me to say yes. "Let me make sure I'm understanding," I said, folding my napkin slowly. "You'd all like me to fund your lives." My mother blinked, surprised. "Sweetheart, we're family. Families help each other." I stayed quiet. Amber tilted her head. "You're still upset about that phone thing. That was over a year ago, and it clearly worked out for the best." My dad frowned. "We put a roof over your head, fed you, gave you everything. All we're asking is a little help now that you're doing well." I set my napkin on the table and signaled for the check. "I need some time to think about this," I said. "Don't take too long," my father said. "The roof won't fix itself." I paid the bill without comment. No one offered to split it. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I let the door close behind me slowly. The taxi ride home was quiet. I watched the streetlights blur past the window and tried to make sense of what had just happened. Not because I didn't expect it, but because some small part of me still hoped they might have shown up for something other than a handout. The next day, the messages started. Photos of ceiling stains, budget breakdowns, Amber's birthday wish list, Jake's revised pitch deck. That weekend I sat across from Dr. Kinsey again. "They don't see you," she said gently. "They see what you can give." I nodded. "I just wanted something real," I said. "Then maybe it's time to give them something real," she replied. "But not what they're asking for." The following Monday, I sent each of them the same text. "I've given your requests some thought. Expect something in your mailboxes next week." The responses came fast, excited emojis, long messages, talk of family dinners and fresh starts. My mother sent a cake recipe. Jake sent another version of his business pitch. Amber asked if I needed her current shipping address for the camera equipment she wanted. I didn't respond. That weekend, I cleared my calendar. I turned off notifications, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and laid everything out on my dining table: documents, printouts, envelopes, stationery, return receipts. Not $1 would be sent, but every package would cost something: time, truth, a closer look in the mirror. I started with Amber. Her envelope held a typed transcript of the voicemail she left my boss, the one where she pretended to be me. I'd gotten it through a former coworker who finally admitted he'd saved a copy. I added copies of the bills I'd fallen behind on after I was fired, late rent notices, a utility shut-off warning, and the receipt from the pawn shop where I'd sold my grandmother's bracelet. Next, I included a copy of a letter from my therapist, with all identifying details removed, outlining the impact of workplace sabotage on mental health and professional stability. Then a screenshot of one of Amber's texts from that time. "It's not that bad. You'll bounce back. Just apply somewhere else." Last, I added confirmation of a $5,000 donation made in Amber's name to a nonprofit that supports workplace bullying awareness and prevention. Her name would appear on the donor list. Attendance at their next virtual workshop was required as part of the program. I wrote a short note printed on thick, cream-colored paper. Amber, you've always had a talent for performance, but what you did wasn't harmless or clever. It was calculated and destructive. I've accepted that you may never understand the full weight of it, and that's no longer my burden to carry. The donation is in your name. I hope the workshop offers something useful. I don't expect change, but I hope for it. Lauren. Next came the package for my parents. I included a small stack of financial planning guides, one specifically written for couples approaching retirement. I added 3 names of certified financial planners in their area, along with a list of free state-sponsored programs that help older adults manage finances on a fixed income. then property records for their house. All 3 times they'd refinanced, each loan and closing date. I included a spreadsheet I'd made myself, 2 columns. One showed the total money they'd put into Amber's ventures over the last 10 years, tuition, housing, business licenses, promotional expenses. The second showed what that amount could have grown into with a basic investment strategy. At the bottom of the envelope, I tucked in a letter, 5 pages, single-spaced. Every instance I could recall where my accomplishments were overlooked and Amber's were celebrated. My father brushing off my job offer with, "It's just marketing." My mother comforting Amber after she ruined my graduation dinner. Sunday dinners where my updates were met with silence, and Amber's newest hobby, whether it was candle making or crystals, was treated like front-page news. Each memory was paired with a short quote or paragraph from family therapy research, highlighting how patterns of emotional favoritism impact adult relationships. Their note was short, "Mom and Dad. I'm not a retirement fund. I'm not your safety net. My success is not a reward for your silence. Everything in this package is meant to be useful. If you ever want to rebuild something real, I'll be here. But I won't keep pretending things were fine when they weren't." Lauren. For Jake. I took a gentler approach. I printed out a blank business plan template from a small business development center in Boston. I included links to local business incubators, a flyer for a weekend seminar at the community college, and a gift certificate for a career counseling session. Then I wrote Jake, "I'm not here to bankroll shortcuts. I'm willing to be in your corner if you're willing to do the work. You've always been the one who stayed neutral, who looked the other way. This is your chance to look inward instead. Use the tools, or don't. Either way, I'm moving forward." Lauren. For Kayla. I included a $25 gift card to a local cafe and a plain card with only one sentence. "Be careful whose family you marry into." Warmly, Lauren. Each envelope was sealed, labeled, and sent by trackable mail. Signature required. I turned my phone off the moment the last one dropped into the mailbox. Bella and I drove out to the coast the next morning. We walked the beach. Cold air. Flat gray sky. No service. I threw sticks and she brought back seaweed instead. By the time I came home, there were 23 unread messages. The first voicemail from my mother was trembling. "How could you send something like that? After everything we've done for you?" By the 4th message, she was in tears. "You're humiliating us, Lauren. It's cruel. My fathers were sharper. You've gone too far. We'll make sure the whole family knows what you've done." Jake texted once. "Low blow, Lauren. Real low." Amber's messages came in bursts, angry, erratic, full of capital letters and half-finished sentences. Her last text read, "You'll regret this. Nobody treats me this way and gets away with it." I sat on the couch, Bella curled at my feet, and scrolled through each message. I didn't cry. I didn't answer. Not one of them mentioned what was in the letters. Not one acknowledged the content, the timelines, the records, the patterns. They were angry that I'd stopped playing along. That night I stood out on my balcony with a blanket around my shoulders. The city lights stretched wide below. I could hear a few muffled horns, the hum of late-night traffic, the soft clicking of Bella's paws on the tile behind me. Dr. Kinsey had once said, "Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold up a mirror, even if the reflection isn't welcomed." I'd sent them mirrors. What they did with them was no longer mine to carry. In the days that followed, the backlash picked up speed. First, it was calls and voicemails. Then came the cousins. My mother's younger sister, my dad's second cousin from Vermont, an uncle I hadn't heard from since college, each one reaching out in carefully worded messages. "We just want to understand what happened. Your mom says things got confused. Your dad's heartbroken, Lauren. Surely this can be resolved. Some of the messages carried guilt. Some came with concern. A few sounded rehearsed. But one thing was consistent. None of them mentioned what was in the packages. No one asked why I'd sent what I did. The story had been rewritten by the time it reached them. From what I could tell, the new version went something like this. I had suddenly become successful, refused to help my aging parents, and lashed out without warning. My sister's role in the sabotage. My parents' long pattern of favoritism. My years of silence and survival erased. To most of them, I was just being ungrateful. I responded to each person the same way. There's more to this story than you've been told. I'm open to relationships built on honesty and respect, not guilt or expectations. Some stopped replying after that. A few asked quiet follow-up questions. My mother's sister asked to meet for coffee. When I explained just one piece what Amber had done and how my parents defended her, she shook her head slowly. "That's not a prank," she said. "That's sabotage." Still, the noise continued. My parents' tone shifted again. The voicemails became quieter, more fragile. One email from my mom arrived with the subject line, "Please think about what this looks like." Inside, she wrote, "We've accepted that you don't want to support your family financially. That's your choice. But please remember how this might appear to others. A daughter with means refusing to help her own parents, it reflects on all of us." I didn't answer. Amber, meanwhile, took a different route. She turned to social media. Posts with vague captions appeared photos of us as kids, filters, and nostalgia-heavy music stories about fake family and how money changes people. When that didn't get much traction, she tried something sharper. A post with a picture of my parents' house, the water stain clearly visible in the ceiling corner. "When your sister has millions but won't help with your mom's leaking roof," it read. I blocked her. I didn't engage. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. The most unexpected message came almost a month later. Jake. He sent a short text. "Can we meet for coffee? Just you and me." We met at a quiet spot near my office. He looked tired, not in a dramatic way, just worn down, like someone who'd been sitting with something heavy for a while. We ordered drinks and sat by the window. "I've been thinking about what you wrote," he said, not looking up right away. I waited. He turned his cup slowly between his palms. "I've always taken the easy route, you know that. Go along with whatever keeps things smooth, even if it's not right." I stayed quiet. He finally looked at me. "When Amber did that, when she made that call, I knew it was wrong. I knew it when you told us, but it felt easier to act like you were just being dramatic." He paused. "Once we all chose a side, I think we felt stuck, like we couldn't admit we were wrong without admitting everything else." We sat like that for a while. No background music, just the quiet hum of espresso machines and muted conversation around us. "I'm not asking you to forgive everyone," he said, voice steady. "But I'm asking if we can try again. Just you and me." He didn't ask for money. He didn't pitch another business idea. He didn't defend anyone else. We met again a few weeks later, then again the month after that. At some point, he mentioned he'd enrolled in a business program at a local community college. Said he wanted to understand what went into a real plan before trying to sell another one. We didn't talk much about our parents or Amber. We talked about work, about mistakes, about how hard it is to change when no one expects you to. 6 months after I sent the packages, I received an email from Amber. Subject line, "I'm sorry." The message wasn't long. "The donation you made. They required me to attend the workshop. I went thinking it'd be a waste of time. But listening to other people talk about what they went through, I saw myself in the stories. I saw what I did. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know I get it now. Or at least I'm starting to. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. I wrote thank you for letting me know. Nothing more. I didn't unblock her. I didn't invite her back in. But I didn't shut the door either. Christmas came a few weeks later. My parents sent a card. One of those pre-printed kinds with glittered holly on the front. It was signed in thick black ink, "Love your family." No message, no photo, no effort. I donated to a nonprofit that helps older adults plan for retirement and sent a card in their name. If you ever want to rebuild something based on honesty and care, my door is open. Until then, I hope this helps others prepare for the future in ways you couldn't or wouldn't. Life continued. At work, I took on a mentorship role for junior team members. On weekends, I met Madison for trivia nights, went to photography meetups, walked Bella through parks we hadn't explored yet. I started dating again, cautiously, slowly. The townhouse felt more like home now. I painted the upstairs hallway, bought a new lens for my camera, adopted a second dog, a timid spaniel who warmed to Bella before he trusted me. Some nights I sat in the garden and watched them both chase shadows across the grass. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. About 7 months after I mailed those letters, I got a notification from the workplace bullying nonprofit. Amber had completed the workshop. They sent a standard confirmation, nothing personal, just a line saying the participant had fulfilled the attendance and engagement requirements. Attached was a short, anonymous reflection she'd written as part of the program. Some of the words felt familiar. I didn't understand the damage a voice could do when it's not yours to use. I thought if I wasn't physically hurting someone, it didn't count. But now I see that harm isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's just a voice in the dark that makes someone else lose the light they built for themselves. I didn't reach out. Instead, I let the acknowledgement sit quietly where it belonged on my side of the story, not hers. Around the same time, Jake invited me to his program's year-end presentation night. He was finishing his certificate in business strategy. Each student had to pitch a revised business concept to a panel of local entrepreneurs. His idea was small an app that helped food truck owners track and manage shared supply costs. It wasn't flashy, but the numbers were sound. The design was clean. The pitch was honest. He wore a navy button-down and had printed copies of his plan. When he introduced himself, he didn't mention me or our family, just his own name and the problem he wanted to solve. Afterward, we walked out into the cool spring air. He turned toward me as we reached the corner. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I wouldn't have done any of this if you hadn't sent that envelope." I nodded. "You did the work. I just handed you a starting line." He smiled, then looked down at his shoes. "If I ever go back to that coffee shop where we met the first time when I told you I'd been wrong, I think I'd start the conversation differently now." "How so?" I asked. "I'd say, I'm ready to be a brother who shows up." That was the first time he'd used the word brother like that in years. Nexus Technologies continued to grow. By the following quarter, we launched a new platform feature for managing expenses in extended families, a project I'd quietly suggested based on personal experience. I worked closely with the UX team, helping shape the voice and tone of the messaging. At the launch meeting, Elaine pulled me aside. "You've turned pain into clarity," she said. "Not many people can do that and still stay kind." In early fall, I was offered a broader leadership role overseeing all communications for the parent company. I accepted. The new position came with a higher title, more responsibility, and a quiet corner office with wide windows that overlooked the river. I kept the office simple, just a framed photo of Bella and Max, my 2 dogs, and a small print that read, "Keep it honest. Keep it human." On the 1-year anniversary of the letter drop, I received a card in the mail. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting right away. My mother's. Inside was a folded note. "We still don't understand everything, but we're trying to. We hope you're well. Mom and Dad. No mention of money, no demands, no birthday reminders, no links to GoFundMe pages. Just 10 handwritten words and a carefully chosen card. I placed it in the same drawer where I kept the first letter I'd sent to them. Not as proof of anything, just as a marker in time. That fall, I was asked to speak at a leadership summit for women in tech. The topic was resilience and rebuilding after public failure. The room was packed, mostly women, a few men, some younger than me, some older, all of them sitting with that particular stillness people have when they're listening closely. I didn't share everything, but I told the story of the call, the dismissal, the silence, and the climb back. When I finished, one of the attendees raised her hand. "How did you find the strength to forgive the people who hurt you?" I paused for a moment. "I didn't start with forgiveness," I said. "I started with boundaries. And once I was safe, really safe, then I made space for the possibility of healing. Not for their sake, for mine." Afterward, a woman in her 60s approached me in the hallway. She wore a floral scarf and carried a well-worn notebook. "Thank you," she said. "Your story helped me name something I've been carrying since I was 17. I nodded, unsure what else to say. Sometimes, she added, the truth doesn't set you free right away. It just opens a window. And that's enough. That evening, I walked home with both dogs tugging gently at their leashes, the sky turning gold behind the skyline. In my mailbox, there was a letter addressed to Ms. L. Bennett. No name on the return label. I turned it over in my hand, then slipped it inside my coat pocket. I didn't open the letter that night. I placed it on the small side table in the hallway next to Bella's leash and the little ceramic dish where I kept my keys. I made tea, changed into sweats, and let the day fall off my shoulders. The dogs curled up by the door like they always did, safe, settled. The next morning after the kettle whistled and the sky turned soft behind the blinds, I opened the envelope. It was a simple card. No glitter, no script. Just a small image of a mountain lake with still water. Inside there was one line written in careful handwriting. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to understand what I broke. Amber." I held the card for a long time, not because I needed anything from it, but because I remembered the girl she used to be. The one who'd cry when her laces came undone, who made me pinky promise not to tell when she broke the hallway mirror. The one who never had to clean up the messes she left behind. And now, maybe she was finally looking at the reflection. I didn't write back. Not yet. But I kept the card. Later that week, I walked through Beacon Hill with both dogs trotting ahead the brick sidewalks uneven beneath our steps. I passed the bookstore I'd discovered during that first winter on my own. The same one where I'd once cried quietly between the self-help shelves, afraid someone I knew might walk in. I stopped by the bakery on Charles Street, bought a loaf of sourdough and 2 almond croissants, one to eat right away, and one to bring to Madison later that afternoon. Life had become full in a way I never could have pictured when I stood outside Meridian with a box in my arms and no job to go back to. Jake and I still met for coffee once a month. He asked thoughtful questions now, not just about business or work, but about people, boundaries, balance, how to build something that lasts, not just something that impresses. My parents hadn't written again, and that was okay. Some people stay where they're comfortable, even when it's lonely there. I'd stopped needing their approval, or even their understanding. What I had now was my own name, protected, whole, respected in rooms I used to only dream of walking into. The home I built was quiet but not empty. Friends gathered around my table. My dogs waited at the door. My windows let in light even on overcast days. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who didn't just survive the worst days, but who built something better because of them, not despite them. The biggest lesson I've learned: you don't owe anyone your silence just because they share your last name. Love without accountability isn't love, it's control. And sometimes the most honest form of healing isn't reconciliation, it's release. So if you're listening to this and you've been told to let it go, to keep the peace, to not cause waves, I want you to know you're allowed to want more. You're allowed to draw a line where no one else has. And you're allowed to live a life that honors your worth, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. Thank you for listening. If this story found you at the right time, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs it or leave a comment with what stood out to you most. And if you're still figuring out how to protect your peace, you're not alone. You're already on your way.